Hi, I'm Allie Janes, in for Jamie Poisson. About half of Americans wish that neither Joe Biden or Donald Trump were on the ticket this November. They'd replace both of them, according to polling from the Pew Research Center. But here we are. And last night, Joe Biden and Donald Trump spent 90 minutes trying to convince Americans to suck it up and choose one of them. My colleague Katie Simpson is in Atlanta with a whole bunch of other journalists at CNN headquarters, right across the street from where the debate took place. And she's here with me to break down all the key moments of the first presidential debate. Katie, first of all, thank you so much for being here. It is pretty much midnight Eastern time on Thursday night, and the debate is just finished. So thank you so much for taking time to do this. I'm sure you're very tired.
You know what? I've had like 3 Diet Cokes, so we've all got the caffeine shakes, so we are ready to go.
Good. Okay, let's do this. Okay, listen, I think we have to start by talking about these guys' performances because, ultimately that's what a lot of people are going to walk away from this with, right? Rather than the specific policy notes. So let's start with Biden. His physical and mental fitness has been a major topic of discussion for quite a while. And this is, the longest relatively unfiltered appearance we've seen from him in quite some time. And his team insists that the Biden that they see in private is vibrant, is in control. Is that who Americans saw tonight?
This is a very challenging moment for Democrats, and it's certainly not what they were hoping for, because the number one thing everyone is talking about right now is that Biden looked old. When the camera was on him and it wasn't his time to talk, he tried to put this outraged look on his face, but he just looked lost and confused. He lost his train of thought time after time after time, and he really stumbled and bumbled in a way that Americans haven't necessarily seen.
What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 billionaires in America.
His staff around him really try to protect him. They don't put him out there that much. And, his team wanted to hold a debate. They thought that this was going to be a good idea. And tonight, if you're an American voter and you're watching this debate and, you're thinking about voting for Joe Biden, but you're concerned, maybe he is a little too old. Maybe, he's past his time. If you tuned into that debate, all of your sort of instincts and your thoughts they were just reconfirmed. He didn't do anything to break through the narrative that he's too old to run.
There's a particularly rough moment that I want to hone in on. Biden was talking about the national debt. I think this was about 12 minutes into the debate. He was talking about the national debt, and he started talking about Medicare, just going to beat Medicare, or we beat Medicare or something. And he kind of just glitched out.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President.
And Trump jumped on this moment.
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
And what kind of impact do you think that moment had in the eyes of voters?
Well, when it comes to TV, right, it's not necessarily the substance of what you say, but how you say it. And if you use that sort of measure, Joe Biden was there making a point about one thing and then trailed off, lost his train of thought, and Donald Trump just jumped and seized on that moment. It went exactly how the Trump campaign was hoping it was going to go. I truly don't think it could have, in terms of Biden's performance. That's exactly what Trump's team has been saying. They run campaign ads down here that are quite personal and quite nasty. There's one where it's Joe Biden's the guy that lost the fight with the stairs, and they show the clip of him falling up the stairs and how he lost a fight putting on his jacket and he's having trouble putting on his jacket, those kinds of things. The Trump campaign is going to seize on this. And so when you have standout moments like that really become the headline clips that get played on social media, moment after moment after moment, it really becomes difficult for Joe Biden. Again, if he wanted to come out here and show people, he's energetic, he's with it, he's still got it, Democrats are not feeling very good in this moment.
I saw our colleague Paul Hunter speaking tonight on CBC saying that, that one moment should be a wake-up call for Democrats, that they might need to switch horses here before, they might need another candidate. Do you think the party sees it that way?
Well, here's the thing. Changing that at this point in the election campaign is really complicated and really difficult. I think Democrats who are really super close to Joe Biden need to start to ask themselves some questions about how did it get to this point where Joe Biden was put on this stage and had such a really difficult performance, and difficult is being really, I think, generous in the way describing what happened tonight. Is there time to switch things out, and could they have a major change at the convention in August in Chicago? There are going to be some hard questions for Democrats, particularly those closest to Joe Biden who maybe didn't say, listen, you're 81 years old, perhaps this isn't your time anymore.
Were there any moments where you think he did come alive, where he showed flashes of this Biden that his closest aides say that they see all the time?
Well, so there were some moments where he went after Trump's character, talking about his criminal convictions, saying things like, you've got the morals of an alley cat. That's one moment that's sort of going to stand out there.
Very Joe Biden.
Very Joe Biden. He said malarkey. But the thing is, the substance of some of the points he was making about his opponent, Donald Trump, some of it's very, very true. Democrats argue that, in this election, democracy is on the line. That's the point they're trying to make. They say Donald Trump is not going to protect the institutions that help, the United States be the strongest democracy in the world.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have, our strength lies in our alliances as well.
And, Democrats, if this is the fight they're in, they sent Joe Biden to be the warrior for this fight. He did have a couple of moments where he went after Trump on some of the more personal things, talking about how he had sex with a porn star and his criminal charges, pointing out the fact that he's a convicted felon.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. What he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill and all those.
But, those kinds of things just roll off Trump. Trump kind of is in this position where he holds up a mirror. No matter what you say to him, he just holds up a mirror and reflects it back to the person who's criticizing him.
But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border.
So whether any of that was sort of effective in sort of, taking on Trump, we'll have to wait and see about that. But really, the big takeaways tonight are really going to be connected to Joe Biden's performance.
I mean, I got to say that very honestly, I often had to turn up the volume on the TV when he was talking. And it did occur to me, I mean, when you're talking about these really, the moments where he was strong, where he was making strong arguments, I just kept thinking, if this was the Joe Biden even of 4 years ago, his delivery would have made those really strong lines. But it was often hard to hear, literally hard to hear what he was saying.
His voice was hoarse, and Joe Biden does have a stutter. It's something that he talks about, and it's something that he deals with, when he does public speaking. And I think a lot of Americans are very happy to give him grace on that, understanding that that is an issue that's out of his control. But, he sounded hoarse. He sounded like he had a cold. He'd just been out of the public eye for a week. He was practicing at Camp David, running mock debates with his advisors. For someone who is resting and, preparing the traditional way for this debate, he didn't respond in a way where he appeared rested. He sounded hoarse. He appeared to have low energy, and he struggled at moments to stay on topic and make the points he was trying to make.
Maybe one of the most jaw-dropping moments of this debate, I mean, certainly for me, was this totally bizarre exchange about golf. Trump was bragging about his golf scores, as he is wont to do.
We knock on wood wherever we may have wood. that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to it.
But then the shocking part was Biden took the bait.
I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. That he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was at 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I had, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to turn.
Let's not act like children.
Talk to me about that moment and what you were thinking.
You know, what really stands out to me, if you needed a reminder that this was a contest between 2 old white men, there you go. That's your reminder, number 1. Number 2, I think, you know, right now in the United States, there is a cost of living crisis. It's very similar to what's going on in Canada. People can't afford groceries. Housing prices have gone up. Rent is going up. There is an immigration crisis when it comes to what's going on at the southern U.S. border and finding ways to sort of deal with the overwhelming number of people who are coming to the United States trying to start a new life, get a better opportunity for their children, and how you deal with that. And, you know, the debate moderators didn't step in as these 2 candidates are going off about golf and how they want to play golf together. And it seemed so out of sort of like what the realities are for people who might be watching this, hoping to learn something new or hoping to make up their minds. It was a bizarre moment.
I mean, talking about the debate moderators, I mean, maybe this is, you know, inside baseball journalist thing, but I was like, found it very frustrating that throughout the format was like, it didn't allow for them to fact check the candidates, and they also didn't jump in general if the candidates didn't answer the questions. And talk to me a bit about how Trump kind of used that, because, you know, on the charitable end of things, he is, let's say, prone to hyperbole. Very often, he's prone to outright lies, misinformation. And so talk to me about where he kind of took that in this debate, particularly because they weren't jumping in to moderate that.
Donald Trump just steamrolled ahead with some lies, some misinformation, and some exaggeration. The moderators in this debate format, they asked questions, but they didn't push back. Sometimes they would ask a follow-up question, you know, if a candidate didn't directly answer the question, but that was rare. So you had this format where these 2 very senior, very respected journalists at CNN, who often use their airtime to talk about how you have to call a lie, how you have to push back against misinformation. And a choice was made that these moderators were going to ask questions. They didn't push back and fact check. But one thing to remember is it was Joe Biden and the Democrats. They proposed going around the debate commission. They wanted to do it this way. They set the rules and agreed to the rules, and the Trump team agreed to the rules. So for whatever complaints are going to be coming from Democrats about the moderators or about how this went down, they agreed to this, and they are the ones that wanted this to happen at this point in the campaign.
In terms of Trump, what were some of the, you know, pieces of misinformation that he gave that really stuck out to you? There were a couple that were quite egregious, I guess.
Let me start with an outright lie. One thing that we know is a lie. So he was asked about whether he would accept the results of the 2024 election. And he said, you know, if it's free and fair and a good election, and then he made a reference to election fraud in 2020. There was no widespread election fraud in 2020. It's something that he says at his rallies quite frequently. And when he talks about his grievances, that is one of his top grievances that he just frequently repeats. It is not true. And the fact that this happened in the state of Georgia is sort of a reminder of that. Remember, he's facing 10 criminal charges in Georgia. Originally it was 13, it's now down to 10, where his supporters believed when he said that, you know, there was widespread fraud. And the Republican officials who ran the election, this is a state where Republicans, hold the most power at the state house. The Republicans who ran the election had to really push back against that. Those lies about election fraud have lasting impact, especially here in this state. Donald Trump said some things that are not true when it came to abortion and the ongoing lack of access to that kind of medical care in the United States.
The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth.
And he made exaggerations about his record on the economy, and also there were lies in there about that as well. So the headline about Joe Biden is his underwhelming performance, and that might be a generous description, the headline is that Donald Trump just said pretty much whatever he wanted to and was completely unchecked. Joe Biden tried to stop him by saying that's a lot of malarkey and everything he says is lies. And Joe Biden isn't wrong there, but because his delivery was so underwhelming, it didn't really stop what was going on.
So let's talk about, some of the policy issues that came up in the debate, and they certainly follow that kind of pattern that you've just been talking about. Let's talk about abortion. So, just quick recap, a Supreme Court stocked with Trump picks overturned Roe v. Wade. The Democrats have been really keen to run on reproductive rights. We know this is a really motivating issue for a lot of Democratic voters. Did Biden get anywhere in terms of advancing that agenda in this debate?
Well, Joe Biden really stuck to what his party's position is on this, and that they want to restore the rights that were taken away, and sort of it's called codifying. They want to codify Roe v. Wade, so they want to put into law the protections that were there that the Supreme Court had overturned. And so, Biden wants to talk about that as much as humanly possible because elections in the past have shown that American voters support reproductive rights, and they're frustrated with what's happened with the court. And Democrats are promising that they're going to do what they can, whether it's legislation or whether it's some sort of other kind of action, that they're going to try and get to a place where they can restore those rights. And they want to blame Donald Trump for what's happened, pointing to the fact that, he appointed those justices that overturned the decision. It was his 3 justices that did it. And so Donald Trump was sort of pressed on that about whether he would put into place a national abortion ban or whether he would ban the medication abortion, the abortion pill. He said no, he wouldn't do that. And, he said, listen, this is where it should be. It's up to the states that want to make decisions about it.
What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional...
Now, Joe Biden tried to counter that by saying, yeah, that's like putting civil rights with the states. Some states want to roll back civil rights. And so he's trying to make that point and highlight that, what else could Donald Trump chip away at if he is given more power and returns to the White House? Did Joe Biden make any new gains on that? Probably not. Decisions around abortion or attitudes around abortion are pretty much baked in at this point. And voters know that, if they support access and they support those kinds of rights, that the Democrats are the party to try and advance that and get back to that place. And if not, Republicans are trying to sort of not be associated with removing those rights, but because it's a political winner, but they're just trying to sort of tread a careful line there.
Trump seemed to really hijack this portion of the debate and make it revolve around late-term abortions. He had some pretty wild misinformation that he has stated before about Democrats allowing babies to be killed after they're born, which is absolutely not true. But, can you talk to me a bit about that? Like, to what extent do you think that he was able to hijack that point of the debate, which should have been, a real win for Biden?
Yeah, he's really going on and on about late-term abortion, something that is incredibly rare in the United States. And there are so many debates about, what kind of medical care a patient can get, if there is a complication or if the mother's life is in danger, or, it's so wild that in 2024 that this is sort of where the debate is in the United States, when for so many years it sort of had been put to the back burner and it wasn't considered this issue. Like, the rights were there, they were protected. The kind of hyperbole and lies that Donald Trump used in his claims around this point, that's a nod to the evangelical, really socially conservative base of support that, helped him get here in the first place, that helped him win the White House the first time. And so, a key part of Donald Trump's base that may have some challenges with Trump on other issues, what really gets them motivated is they are motivated by the anti-abortion movement.
So let's talk about immigration and the border now. This has been a big issue in this campaign. Both candidates know that. They're making the case that this is something that they can tackle. And talk to me about how that played out in the debate, because this is definitely something that Trump, really ran with, even in questions that had nothing to do with it, right?
So in terms of, the debate that happened tonight, a lot of what we heard from Donald Trump is hyperbole, talking about how he makes this claim that mental institutions and jails are, opening up their doors and everyone's coming up to the United States.
We are living right now in a rat's nest. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens.
Are there challenges with the immigration system? Absolutely. But when you paint things in stark terms with claims that are not true, it's something that really rallies his base and, motivates voters. One thing I will say that's really changed about the debate around immigration is once governors in southern states like Texas and Florida, once they started sending migrants who are waiting for their asylum claims to sort of be adjudicated, started sending them to cities in the north that have sanctuary city policies like New York, like Chicago, like Denver. What those cities experienced in terms of the strain on the social resources, on shelters, on food banks, those kinds of challenges, it did motivate change on attitudes towards immigration. Whether any sort of headway was made on it tonight, I don't think so. Like it really didn't move. I didn't see anything that came out to say, hey, that's a new thing. That could lead to something different. It was both of the candidates really leaning into what their positions are.
I think we have to talk about the fact that Trump is now a convicted felon for campaign finance violations. This is the hush money stuff. He's also got cases looming about his role in the January 6th insurrection. How did all of that factor into this debate?
Well, I thought it would come up more often, to be frank. I thought that perhaps, the debate moderators might try to push Trump because, it came up a couple of times. But in the U.S. at this point, attitudes toward Trump and his allegations, a lot of it's sort of baked in the cake already, really. Trump's base, they believe him when he says he's being unfairly targeted. They think that this is Joe Biden sort of weaponizing the justice system against him, even though there is no evidence to back up that claim. He continues to make it. And so the question is, the handful of voters who haven't figured out, who they're going to vote for or what they're feeling just yet, it'll be interesting to see as more of these cases actually head to court, but we're not expected more cases before the election. Right now, a lot of people in America have made up their minds about Trump. There's not a lot of, he's polarizing. So people have very strong feelings about him. And the question is, he's been convicted, and do they care? And a lot of Americans don't care.
Okay, so this is only the first debate of the campaign. It's still another 4 months to the election. There will be more debates. So, Katie, coming out of this debate, if I'm on Team Trump, what's my next move? Where do you think he'll go from here?
I think the Trump team is going to keep doing exactly what it's doing. And they've already been criticizing Joe Biden, claiming that, they say he's got dementia. They say he's mentally unfit. They say that he is not the guy. He doesn't have the energy to lead this country for another 4 years. And Joe Biden's performance in this debate, it didn't really challenge that narrative. So I think you're going to see some really personal, really mean memes. Mean memes, I guess, is the new thing we're going to say. It's already in that sphere, and that's sort of like it motivates. Laughing at the other guy kind of motivates part of his base, and so expect more of that. Expect he's going to hold a rally on Friday. Expect more criticisms of Joe Biden, particularly around his age and his mental fitness. So that, I think, is the the sort of path they're going to be heading on. They're headed toward the Republican convention in July, and Trump's on track to pick a vice president. But I think they're going to bask in this moment, even though that Donald Trump said a lot of things that are not true during this debate. The bigger headline, it's not the lies, it's the performance of Joe Biden. I think they're going to bask in that.
Okay, so let's go there. What about Biden? How does his team try to come back from the hits that they've taken here tonight?
That is going to be the big question. And a lot of questions about how did it get to this point. You know, if the Democratic Party has decided, okay, this is such a high stakes election, and then they're putting up a candidate that, you know, is not delivering a performance that they hoped he would deliver, that's a lot of really deep questions need to be asked of the Democrats. And what do? Do they try some emergency intervention to try to change things at the convention? Again, it's a nightmare sort of scenario for the Democrats to try to sort out, you know, what it is that they're going to do. Do they just keep him on the ticket? Kamala Harris, the vice president, was on CNN just after the debate, and even she couldn't really spin, you know, Joe Biden's debate performance tonight, you know, sort of acknowledging that it was a rough, slow start. She keeps trying to point to the substance of what he said, but many Americans, again, the TV is the medium. They're watching this, whether it's TV or they're watching it on their phones and watching this video. So much of what you say can be undercut by the way you say it, and Joe Biden's performance was underwhelming.
All right, Katie, we will leave it there. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it, and I hope you get some sleep tonight.
Thanks, you too. Have a good one.
All right, that is all for today. Front Burner was produced this week by Jyoti Sengupta, Matt Amha, Matt Muse, Derek Vanderwyk, and Julia Israel. Sound design was by Matt Cameron and Sam McNulty. Music is by Joseph Shabison. Our senior producer is Elaine Chow. Our executive producer is Nick McCabe-Locos. I'm Allie Janes. Thank you for listening to Front Burner.